Listen-only mode.
Good evening, and thanks to everyone for being on the call this evening. We apologize, but Marvin Reynolds with Reset Your Barcode, we had a conflict, and he's not going to be on the seminar with us this evening. But hopefully we're going to be able to share some things with you that's going to maybe change your thinking a little bit and will be of benefit. Tonight we're going to talk about the real estate money machine. And I define insanity as doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And today there are many people that continue to do the same things over and over again and don't understand why they're not getting different results. We're in a very critical time in our economy, in our society, and it is going to take a little different thinking, I think, as we move into the modern economy. So let's get started and move forward, and hopefully we'll be able to share some things with you that will be of value. Here's a little of my background. I've been in financial services for about 44 years, started in 1968, and you know, I've accomplished a lot in my career, but about 7 years ago I really stood back and took a look at where I was going and advice that I was giving people, and decided that I needed to change what I was doing, because I was right into that definition of insanity, doing the same things over and over again, even for my clients, and expecting different results. I love to do charity work. I love my family. We have 6 children, 24 grandchildren, and all of what we're doing today is within the framework of not only helping other people that need a hand up and not a handout, but also our family as we work toward creating a legacy that we're going to be proud of. Let's talk a little bit about your retirement savings are at risk and why they're at risk. It's interesting. I met with a gentleman yesterday. He had worked over 30 years in the packaging business, and when he retired, he had an income from his pension of $2,400 a month. The pension plan became insolvent. His pension all of a sudden went from $2,400 a month down to $1,100 a month. And obviously that made a huge difference in his lifestyle. We know today that there's tremendous pressure on Social Security. And many of these slides, I'm not going to go through them slide by slide, because a lot of this you're probably reading along. But a couple things I want to hit on briefly. First one talks about inflation threat. And today there are many people out there that have retired that maybe have $200,000 in a safe harbor sitting someplace, and the best they can get in that today is 0.5%, 1%, or if they're willing to tie it up for 10 years, 2%. And if you look at it, 2%, that's a whopping $4,000 a year on $200,000 of assets. And the problem with inflation is, I don't know, my wife sent me to the store the other night to get 2 pounds of extra lean hamburger, and I was going to Walmart, and I thought, man, this is going to be cheap stuff. Well, 2 pounds was $14, $7 a pound. Where I'm going with that is the inflation figures that the government is giving us are not real figures, because they're taking so many things out of the equation. It would be scary if they put everything back into the equation to really know what the current rate of inflation is. I mean, just look at the things that you're buying on a regular basis. So your retirement savings are at risk, and the biggest part of that is the fact that where do you really go today in kind of a safe harbor, if you will, and get a rate of return that's going to generate for you sufficient income in retirement. There are a lot of other things. You know, the asset protection that's mentioned here on the screen, people aren't nearly as concerned about that, because quite frankly, I saw an article just the other day that said the asset base of the average person in this country is now down about 30% in the last 3 years. So in other words, the assets that they're trying to protect are going down. Another big factor is, of course, corporate America is changing. The whole dividend structure that many people retired on, had a good portfolio of stocks, and depended on those dividends for regular income, and that's not happening. Too much work, because when you retire, you want to go away from your day job and those things that you're forced to do, and move into kind of a a different phase of your life where you want to be involved in things that you're really, really passionate about. And then who do you trust? Are we getting conflicting information today in the financial world? Absolutely. We're getting a lot of misinformation. So it's going to take a change in our mindset to really get us thinking along the lines of what are we going to have to do different. Let's talk a little bit about the volatility in the stock market. You know, and I love this, and the reason I love this because I got my securities license in 1969. And in 1969, it was really a general securities license, what is called a Series 7. I could do everything, and I was grandfather over the years until 7 years ago when I gave up my securities license. But we used to go around the office saying, how do you make $1 million in mutual funds? Well, the answer was you start with $2 million. So since 1969, I've seen the volatility that comes from the stock market. And there's some things that are happening today that is impacting that at even an accelerated rate over things that have happened in the past. So if you're investing in stocks, certainly you don't have predictable rate of returns. You don't have tangible assets or things you can touch and feel that you own. And the reality of it is that since 1900, U.S. equities have only averaged about 6% a year. But the problem with an average is it doesn't exist in the real world. So even if the average rate of return shows 6%, the actual rate of return may only be 4.5%. So that compounded with the fact of taking away the dividends, and now the annual gain drops to 1.7%. And many of you have been through the stock market ups and downs, and you know exactly what I'm talking about. Let's look at the volatility in the market, and this goes back to January of 2000 to August 1st of 2011. Over that period of time, the Dow is up 11%, which sounds all right until you realize that's 11 years. That's 1% a year. So, and here again, that's an average. You take out other things, such as fees. You take out other hidden costs. It's interesting. I read an article just last week that said more and more employers are finally waking up to the reality of the real cost of the management fees inside their 401k accounts. Kind of sometimes the hidden fees and the fine print, if you will, in the prospectus. And they found that the average fees on asset value is 2%. You know, and the crazy thing about that is money managers today, they're paid whether you make money or whether you lose money. In fact, if your account's going down 10%, they're still going to get paid a management fee based on the assets that they have under management for you. S&P has done terrible. It's down 7.7%. Well, look at the NASDAQ, down 30% over that 11-year period. But let's go over here to the last one on the right and look at real estate. In that same time period, and this is from MSN and Money and other reliable sources out there, real estate is actually up 39.9%. This slide is interesting, and it's going to get more interesting. It showed that as of April 2012, 50% of the Americans were invested in the stock market. Well, that's from a high in 2002 to 67%. But it's at 54% today, and that figure is going to start going down dramatically in the future, and here is the reason why, and I'm part of the reason for that. I was born in 1946. I'm 65, will turn 66 this year. I'm the first of what are known as the baby boomers, and there are 80 million of us that are baby boomers, and that number is increasing by 10,000 a day. What is the stock market based on? It's based on supply and demand. People that start reaching my age, they're taking one word out of their vocabulary, and that word is risk. They're saying, I don't want to risk what I have today. So they're going to be pulling money out of the market. And as the acceleration of these people that reach that age, taking money out of the market, what's that going to do to the demand? Obviously, it's going to go down. So this is something that is very, very critical, and we have to take into consideration as we move forward. Let's listen to a couple of the experts. And I know if you're like me, you take a lot of stock in what Warren Buffett says. But he makes a statement that wide diversification is only required when you do not understand what you're doing. Then he makes a very interesting statement. If he said, if I could, I'd buy a couple 100,000 single-family homes, and our favorite holding period is forever. Donald Trump said, great time to buy a house. Great deals. If you look hard enough, some cases you don't even have to look that hard. It's a great time to buy. And that's one of the expertise that Silverstream brings to the market for the average investor today, is puts them into a position where somebody else can help them, guide them, coach them as they go through this process of making those decisions. Let's look at what has been known as a time-tested way for creating wealth, and that is the real estate money machine. Generated annual returns of anywhere to 12 to 20%. Low cost of entry. We couldn't always say that. We couldn't say that 4 years ago because the cost of entry was very high. I moved to St. George, Utah about 6 years ago, and the home that I'm in today would have probably cost $500,000. I couldn't afford it when I moved here 6 years ago. We bought that same home in December of 2011 for $230,000. So the cost of entry today is lower than it has been in some time. Now you can acquire those properties outside of a qualified plan, but they can also be acquired inside of an IRA or a solo 401k. The assets are protected. You have tax advantages. And one of the tax advantages, if you buy it inside of a qualified account and you're only 40 years old, you can continue to do that for the next 20 years, and you've got the tax protection and of the deferred growth on that. Inflation protected, because the bottom line, if everything else stumbles and falls, people still need a place to live. And it's going to pay you dividends every month in the form of rent. Let me tell you a little about Silverstream Advisors. It was built to be a customer service company, and it has a team of financial experts working with you to customize and guide you through some of the pitfalls out there to help you reach your goals. And the top executives of Silverstream have been in real estate investing combined for 150 years. But they do kind of the due diligence. They do the heavy lifting, the hard work. They analyze specific markets throughout the USA and make recommendations regarding the top markets and why, the reasons that we have come up with for buying in those markets. In other words, we live very close to Las Vegas, and yet we're not touching the Las Vegas market. Several years ago, we had several projects going there, and quite frankly, did all right of them. But it's a market, even though it's accessible to us, very close here in St. George. It's only an hour and a half, 2-hour drive. We're not in that market. But we find solutions for people that have problems and help them solve them. So what makes us different? We do, here again, like I said, the hard work so you don't have to. We do our research. We find the right kind of real estate in the right market at the right price at the right time. And most of our properties, if not all, are rent ready. Many have a 1-year home warranty in place. Many have leases in place for a year or longer. We make sure that the property managers are the best in the markets that we're working with, and we work with other affiliates to help with your goals, whether you want to set up an LLC, an IRA, retirement distribution, other tax planning. So we're going to be there for any and all customer service needs that you might ever have as we move forward and form a partnership and work together. What is step one? Well, that's consultation with one of our relationship managers. It's going to look at your situation. Everybody's situation is unique. One size does not fit all. It's not a cookie cutter approach where we're telling everybody you need to do the same thing. You need to identify your financial goals, long-term, short-term financial strategies, and that's our first step in working with Silverstream. The second step is you now gain access to our database of properties. These properties show annual returns of anywhere from 12 to 20%, valued at $30,000 to $100,000 per property. Now think, when was the last time you could buy a property in a good market, getting strong rents for $30,000? Well, we have all kinds of properties that fit that category. So we're going to find those properties, we're going to review them, and we're going to find those that fit into your objectives, and we've got those in our vault. Step three is contract and close with us on the properties that fit your goals. And you become a member of Silverstream Advisors through a membership agreement. It's that simple. We want to be with you for the long haul. And having said that, I will tell you that we don't do everything, but we align ourselves with professionals in all of these markets that, for example, will become the property managers, will help in these other areas. That doesn't mean that you can't do it on your own. It just means that in many cases, people want to create something that really is a money machine, but something where they're not having to worry about it day in, day out, and doing it. They don't want to get the call at 3 o'clock in the morning saying our water heater has gone out and the bathroom has flowed over for the 4th time. They don't want to get those calls at 3 o'clock in the morning, and that's why our property managers handle all those types of situations. And then step 4 is we provide property management tools to assist you in your success as real estate investors. And you know, a lot of times we talk to people that say, you know, gee, I just kind of have a bad, you're asking me to invest in real estate, and I just read an article yesterday that said foreclosures are on the rise again. But we need to understand it's a different market today than it was 3-4 years ago. And these properties are being purchased in different ways. More and more of them are being purchased through qualified plans. Many of them are bought with zero leverage. All cash, and so the dynamics are totally different today than they have been in the past, and we're going to provide those management tools to help you be successful. So basically, you're going to be in business for yourself. You're going to have a real estate business, if you will, for yourself, but not by yourself, because we're going to surround you with people that will, here again, do the heavy lifting and help you through some of the hurdles that are out there today. So membership has its privilege. So in other words, we're creating a community of people that say, I want to think a little differently, but at the same time, I don't want to do it on my own. You know, the definition of synergy, if you go into the dictionary, is basically a large group of people working together, each bringing something into a relationship, a certain strength that now allows everybody to accomplish more. But you're going to have lifetime customer support. You're going to have access to our resources, our property vault, updates on new opportunities, maybe special opportunities, also discounts on affiliate services, whether it be property management, setting up of LLCs, custodial fees, and access to our team of experts that can help you and follow up with you, keep you up to date with issues that are going to involve you and your business. Here are some of our success stories. In this first one, I've known this family for 7 years. Wonderful, wonderful people. And a lot of what they were doing was in traditional, if you will, financial advanced planning and advising. We have kind of changed their whole model. and got them thinking in a different paradigm than they've ever thought about before. And they've bought properties, they've invested in notes where they have a first trustee position, and they're in a safe harbor today because we've helped them understand and realize that that's the way that we, you know, Mark Twain once said, and I think it's very appropriate today when he said, I'm more concerned about a return of my money than a return on my money. And many people today are realizing that that's becoming truer as time goes on. Here's another success story. The Steve Rogers family. They now have over 5 properties, and they talk about our organization exceeding all the expectations with the customer service, and they're now buying a 6th property. But they've got 5 properties that are paying on time, yielding double-digit returns, and they're picking up the 6th property. Shannon Ferguson, and boy, what a great individual Shannon is. But you know, she kind of had a change of thinking in 1998, and I'm going to tell her story, and I don't think Shannon will mind me sharing her story with you. But it was 1998. She was in the hospital giving birth to a new child who had some complications, some medical issues, and while she was in the hospital, a couple things happened. She saw her 401k account just taking a nosedive. At the same time, her father, who had worked for General Motors for over 40 years, had just been advised that General Motors, when they went into bankruptcy, he lost his pension, he lost his life insurance. And she said, I was laying there in my hospital bed, and I just felt helpless. And I said, I'm never going to let this happen to me again. And so she has created what is called the Shannon's Freedom Project, and you can see that on our Silverstream website. But she is a class lady who is doing things different today because of the principles, the things that we have shared with her at Silverstream Advisors, and put her into a situation where she will never have to. You know, I kind of made an interesting comment to her, and I said, you know, Shannon, a lot of times when I work with people, they're in a 401k account, we sit down and they'll bring in a stack of 6 envelopes that haven't been opened. And I'll ask them, I'll say, well, what are those? And they'll say, they're my 401k statements. And I'll say, well, why haven't you opened them? And they'll say, because I don't want to see what's in there. Well, let's open them. You know, I was in the California National Guard, and a commander at one time told us in a meeting, and I was an officer, and so I had direction of people. And he made a comment that has really stayed with me to this day, and it basically is that bad news does not improve with age. So if there's bad news out there, let's find it, but there are ways that we can position ourselves to protect as we move forward in the future and not have to deal with those kind of issues. Dan Cordoba, Asset Exchange Strategy. Here is a gentleman that has kind of been the backbone, if you will, of self-directed IRAs, and one of the reasons that they're becoming so much more prominent today. His organization, I think, has been around for 11 years. They've gone through something like 40 audits and have never had a thing that has been out of place. And they've created a process of helping people set up a self-directed IRA with check writing privileges. Now think about it for a minute. If you have only $50,000 in your IRA account, but guess what? You've got a checkbook on a local bank in your community, and if a real estate opportunity comes up, you can go in, write out a check for $50,000 and say, if you want to know whether or not this is going to clear, call the bank, because the money is in there. Because in real estate, timing is everything. Location is certainly a part of it, but timing is everything. When that property comes onto the market, unless you're able to act quickly, in many cases you're going to lose the opportunity to acquire that property. So Dan Cordoba has been a big part of what we're doing today and brings a wealth of experience to what we're putting together. Okay, who are our ideal clients? First of all, it's somebody that believes in intrinsic value. What do I mean by that? For example, if you have a 401k account and it's all in mutual funds, some of it may be in stocks, bonds, cash, and everything else, but guess what? You have a piece of paper. But if in your retirement account you have things like assets that you actually own, whether it be gold, silver, or real property, real estate, you have something that you can touch and feel. And we're also finding more clients who are coming our direction simply because they don't trust traditional investing. They're not going to continue in the future to drink the same Kool-Aid that they've drank in the past because they've just been through too many situations where it has not worked for them. People looking for safe, higher returns. Clients who maybe have installment sale needs. Clients that also maybe want to look at 1031 exchange properties, in other words, or opportunities. They've got properties out there that they own. They want to go into something else, and there are other things we can do. And the last one in the market here in terms of dollars available today are clients with IRA accounts and 401ks. And one of the things that we have to be concerned about in our country is international investors are coming into the United States and they're buying huge blocks of homes and other real property because they understand the importance of having something that you can touch and you can feel, something that does have that intrinsic value. So clients that have IRA accounts and 401k accounts need to understand that there are different options available out there. They don't have to do it the way that they've always done it just because the financial institutions are telling them to do it that way. And I'm not going to beat up on Chase, but you know, several weeks ago they lost a couple $2 billion. And an organization like that, you know, that's not even a blip on the radar screen. But the bottom line is financial institutions today, they want your money. They want to be able to hang on to it as long as they can. They want to pay you the least amount in return. Because I really found it interesting. Yesterday I went to America First Credit Union in my local community and made a deposit for one of our accounts. And I noticed up there that they had the rates of return. Anything less than a year was 0.5% or 0.75%. But then they had their 10-year CD rate. So in other words, if you're willing to give them $100,000 tied up for 10 years, you're going to get a whopping 2% or $2,000 a year. Now let me ask you a question. How long would America First Credit Union be in business if they were getting 2.5% because they're paying you 2%? We know that that's not the case. Their auto loans go from 3% to 17%. There are other mortgages and loans that maybe go up as high as 11 or 12%. So in a lot of cases, they're giving you 1%, but guess what? They're making 17%. And I won't even get into the spread and the multiplier effect on the benefit that that provides for the financial institutions today. Let's talk about advantages of investing in real estate with a self-directed IRA. First of all, the tax deferral. Now, as you come to understand this, you know, we're not huge proponents of putting tons of money into qualified plans today because we say, sure, you do get tax deferral, but at some point, somebody's going to have to pay the tax. And we ask the question, do you think taxes are going up or going down? And in a qualified account, at the end of the day, you're in a partnership, and that your partner is the government. And their percentage of that partnership is, quite frankly, whatever they want it to be. All they have to do to increase their partnership rate by 5% is raise taxes 5% because now you're going to pay on the distribution. The things that are asset protected, what we call real versus paper, no 1031 exchange requirements, and certainly you can continue to make profits in investing in real property, and those profits are going to be deferred until you start with your exit strategy. So here's how our IRA experts are going to work with you. They're going to help you identify what your individual needs are, identify things like the risk, rate of return, but more importantly, exit strategies. We need to develop an exit strategy today that tells us how we can move this thing forward when we decide we're going to start to take distribution. If you're currently dealing or have any IRS problems or tax issues, we're going to help you resolve those. But we want to put you back in control and take the control away from the financial institutions and strategize real estate with your self-directed IRA account. Here's how our experts will work with you towards those goals. Case study 1. This is somebody that has about $300,000 to $1 million. That's what they've got to set aside for retirement. They want to invest in something with consistent higher returns. And here again, I mean, if you retired today and you had $1 million, think about it. If you could only get 1% on that, what is that? That's $10,000 a year. How much income can you generate on $10,000 a year? If you have that in real property that's only getting 8 or 9%, that's $80,000 or $90,000 a year. And let me ask you a question. Would you rather have $10,000 a year, or would you rather have $80,000 or $90,000 a year? But probably more important, you're going to be able to take advantage of the unprecedented opportunities that are out there in real estate today. And here's somebody that received $300,000 as an inheritance. And since it came as an inheritance, there was no estate tax, so this passed on. They were able to acquire $300,000 worth of Silverstream properties, and after 20 years, not including appreciation, we're saying if we bought these properties today, kind of like Warren Buffett said, what's his holding period? Forever. When he buys a company, he doesn't like to sell it. He's not making his money buying and selling properties. I mean, businesses or properties. He's buying it and holding them for the long term. So without appreciation, that $300,000 in 20 years is going to grow to over $1 million. And here's what it looks like. 20 years down the road, they're going to be able to get roughly $42,000 a year. We haven't factored in rent appreciation. We really haven't looked at a situation where rents will go up. And, you know, we just have to say, realistically, do we think rents are going to go up or go down? And what we're finding here in St. George, I think, is happening in more markets today because of the high rate of foreclosure. People still need a place to live. We're seeing a very tight rental market right now. We're seeing rents going up, even though property values have not gone up that much, simply because there is a greater demand than the supply that is out there right now. Case study number 2. Somebody, Jacob, had $100,000 in his IRA. He had invested in some mutual funds and stocks that were not performing as he had hoped. His goals would be to invest in something that generates higher returns, get into the real estate market without all the heavy lifting, the hard work, and still get that tax-deferred growth within his IRA account. Thomas had one of our partner IRA companies transfer his funds into a self-directed IRA. It was then invested with Silverstream Advisors, and he was able to acquire 2 income-producing properties, returning an annual net yield of about 13.87%. So that's about $14,000 a year. Here again, going back to my example before, if he had taken that $100,000, put it in a safe harbor, said, I'm at a point in my life where I no longer want to take risks, he might get $1,000, $2,000 a year. And let me ask you a question. If you're in your exit strategy now, you're starting to take money out of your IRA account, would you rather have $2,000 a year or $14,000 a year? Here, this kind of looks at it. If rents don't go up at all, we're going to see a situation where his portfolio, after 20 years, not including appreciation, is going to have grown to $377,000. And that's if rents don't go up at all over that 20-year period. So we try and use conservative figures. we really honestly feel that we're going to be able to do better than this. But if we just do kind of the bare minimum, if you will, you can see some of the potentials. Let's talk a little bit about our current markets. Kansas City, Toledo, Cleveland, Rochester, Charlotte, Indianapolis, Memphis, St. Louis, Atlanta, Tampa, Miami. And one of my favorite markets today is Memphis. Memphis has a very strong economy. It's kind of become a hub. It's the headquarters of companies like FedEx and other companies that have built their business of distribution around major hubs. So very, very strong. Atlanta certainly is always in one of those categories. And the question that I get asked very often is they say, well, you guys are in Salt Lake City, Utah, but I don't see you doing anything on the West Coast. We're doing everything on the other side of the Mississippi River. Why is that? Well, based on our studies, in our demographics and the data that we come up with and look at, those are not the markets that the average investor can maximize their benefits and efforts for obtaining real estate. It is coming in some of these other markets, and so that's by design. Because from our standpoint, I mean, how much easier would our job be if all of our properties were in Utah or even within a 100-mile radius of Salt Lake City? But you understand, we can't buy properties in Salt Lake City for $30,000, pay all cash for them in a self-directed IRA account, and get the kind of rents that we're getting in some of these other markets that we're currently in today. Here are 4 examples, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time going through these. One is in the Atlanta area, another is in Kansas City, Memphis, Indianapolis. The returns on those properties, cash on cash, range anywhere from a low of about 13% to a high of around 15.4%. Now, a lot of these properties inside of an IRA account, we can provide what is known as non-recourse financing. In other words, where somebody can go in and put up 50% of the amount needed to acquire the property, and the other 50% is going to be through a non-recourse loan. What does that mean? It means they're really only on the hook for the amount that they put into the property. If it turns out that it's upside down, nobody can come back against them to get a deficiency judgment or get the other. But if you look at the financing on some of these, then that increases the rates of return from 18 to a high of around 24%. And these are just examples of some of the products that we have in our vault, some of the properties that we have available for people that are considering doing business with us. So what we're saying is kick the tires, learn a little bit more about us, talk to us, look at our property inventory, play back some of the webinars, look at some of our account manager referral programs and how many people today are tying into that. Find out about the investor success stories that we have, view our blogs, and view our real estate expert team, and look at the events that we have coming up. You know, we make it easy for people not only to find out about us, but to find out, and let's face it, I mean, we're in a new world today. Me being able to do this webinar today, sitting in St. George, Utah, and talking to people in North Carolina, South Carolina, I just think is incredible. But we have created incredible resources that you can tap into to learn more about us. Are we a good fit? All I would say is continue to talk, continue to kick the tires as long as it makes sense. Get a complimentary initial consultation and evaluation of your situation, how it fits your particular situation and needs. Don't necessarily just take all of our advice. The complimentary consultation is not going to cost you anything. And we want to be in a position where we can become a resource, where we can create value for you. And in the future, as we move forward and work together, you're going to want to do business with us. Here's our contact information. 801-352-40455 is our phone number. And I'm going to do something else here. I'm going to give you my personal cell phone number, 801-319-9810. My clients over the years have known that if they have a question, that they have access to me 24/7. And I will always get back to them within at least a day unless I'm out of the country. And sometimes I take calls when I'm out of the country. So go to info@silverstream.com, www.silverstream, SLVRSTREAM.com. Find out more about us, and let's hope that we have an opportunity to work together to help you gain that confidence to have that kind of that modern thinking about money in the modern economy, and how moving forward you're going to have to really open your mind to suggestions and ideas of how you can do things different today than you have done in the past. We want to thank you for being on the call tonight. Hope that you might call us, go onto our websites, gain additional information from us. Get your time. We know your time is valuable, but you have a great evening, and we look forward to working with you as we move forward in this partnership together in the future. Thank you.